I'm Lonnie Johns. I'm from Roanoke, Virginia. I currently live in Norfolk, Virginia. I'm a senior architect supervisor for NAFAC, which is Naval Facilities Engineering Command down in Norfolk. Um, and I'm up here for the first Africans Day. For this is my third one. I've been to every single one so far, so that's my primary. Okay. Yeah, I was born in Roanoke, Virginia, 1969, October 21st, 1969. I grew up there, born there, stayed there pretty much my entire life up until graduating from high school, where I attended Virginia Tech and went through the College of Architecture for 5 years and graduated. Then worked at an architecture firm in that particular area for 15 years, AECOM and Hasty Matter, left there to come to this side of the state eventually, and has been working for the NAFAC ever since, where I do design and construction projects up and down the East Coast, all the way from Maine down to Delaware. So I handle most of the Navy's projects and how we hire architecture firms for the government. And we also do some of our own work and do some projects such as gymnasiums and facilities for the military. As far as my personal connection, I can start by how I first started coming here. I got into genealogy 1998, and after one of my aunts, Aunt Clarissa Caldwell, first told me about the Lee family and our connection to the family in Stratford Hall. So, listening to her, she had talked to some older aunts that were like 100, that gave her family tree information, and she in turn passed that information down to me. So I pretty much ran with it from there, went to libraries, did research back in the days before Ancestry.com when it was easy to do online. So I was doing a lot of research for the last 20 some years. Um, I visited Stratford that first year, 1998, and went to the library and met some of the people at Stratford. So I've been coming ever since then. I took a little break, but over the last 4 or 5 years, I've been coming pretty regularly. As far as my tie, the way my research and the oral history that my aunt gave us, the Lee, it was a Lee on this slave on the plantation named Moses Lee and his wife Lucy Lee, and they had a kid named Moses Lee as well. So my ties to that branch of the slaves that were here, that they were in the 1780s, they were here to early 1800s, before some of the slaves were sold off of the property. So I think once they were sold off, they relocated to Campbell County, Virginia, and that's where most of my people have been ever since. Growing up, I could trace from Moses to his offspring. Um, he had 3 kids, and so Richard, Martin, and William. So from there, they were born in the 1840s, and from there, Martin is my particular branch. So Martin had Rachel, Lee, and a few other offspring, so about 9 or 10 kids. So from there, Rachel had my great grandmother Eleanor. Then she had my grandmother Helen Dabney. So that's kind of how we're linked to the Lees and the Stratford Hall. Um, from there, Helen Dabney had 9, 10 children. My mother was being one of them, the eldest, the surviving eldest of the children. So her name, Dr. Dolores Johns. So like I said, I've been tracing the family tree, doing DNA research. I've done took the DNA test, and several of my other family members have taken DNA tests. I've tried to get them involved in taking DNA tests, and so I'm kind of exploring the DNA option. I mean, exploration of how we're tied and linked, and also the regular library work and just trying to piece together. It's still a learning curve and learning endeavor. So that's where I am right now. And just like I said, my aunt Clarissa Caldwell interviewing those older aunts from Philadelphia's Uther Lee and Minerva Lee. So those two older, they were in their hundreds, sisters. that told my aunt about some experience. They said they can remember being up here, but as far when they were little, but they as far as any other detailed slave information, I don't really can't give you too much on that. So just there, just being able to trace to the parents, I mean, the actual slaves that are on this plantation, and I, like I said, I do have copies of the inventory list from 1782, and I think it's 1802 that I believe that link Lucy and Moses Lee to us. Growing up, I didn't know too much of either side of my family up until talking to my great aunt, Clarissa Caldwell. So childhood and everything, I had no clue, about Lee Hall and Stratford or anything up until my late, 1990s. So no, I really don't have too many stories of when they were slaves or anybody's slaves. So I knew about Robert E. Lee and his role, and even other plantations, Thomas Jefferson's plantation. So being in Virginia, I was aware of most of these areas, but I've never really visited them until I got into genealogy. So before, I didn't have a big idea about it or one way or the other. I just knew, slavery happened here. It was kind of a bad place where bad things happen. But after coming here, getting to know the staff and learning a little bit more about the people here, it's made it a little easier to adjust to that idea of how my forefathers were treated on this plantation. And since getting here, it's been a great experience. The staff have let me see documents and tours and things that I'd never even thought about doing before I started in getting into genealogy. So they did open up a lot of um, vehicles to help my research as I still do research. So yeah, I have a pretty positive experience of coming up here. I've been here, like I said, last 3 years for First Africans Day, and even a little before that. Initially, I reached out to Stratford. Like I said, I made the first trip in 1998. Got to know the librarian, some of the staff, and they actually had some letters that some other relatives had written them, where they had been in communication with other relatives of mine, and so I was able to stay in touch a little bit that way. And then like I said, it was a big period where I didn't come back too much at all, and now I've been kind of reaching out. I think the first real contact I had with Stratford again was 3 or 4 years ago, where Dr. Kelly, she was doing some. It was a seminar, a Zoom seminar back before COVID as it gets started up, and she was doing a Zoom, just talking a little bit about the plantation in Stratford. And a couple of my family members happened to be on at the same time, and we kind of told her our link to the plantation, and so from there it was like a mutual. They were real interested in our family, we were interested in them, and we met up a couple of times on Zoom and talked a little bit, and then we organized site visits to come up here. And ever since then, they've been rolling out the red carpet for us and treating us great. The first Africans Day, we had a little help in planning. They gave us wanted our opinions, our advice on, they ran some of their ideas by us, and we were like, yeah, we like that. Maybe you could tweak this, so we've been very instrumental in several of the different events they've had up here, and we look forward to continue serving in that role. Me personally, I'm part of the Lee Plantations Advisory Board and Strategic Advisory Board. So I've been meeting the last couple of months, a couple of times with Karen Daly, and the Lee Foundation, and we've been talking about, just getting our ideas of how we think certain things should be shared as far as the enslaved people, and things we can do to bring that story more out in the forefront. So I've kind of been meeting with them about that on the side, and also in general the whole Stratford Hall plan. Strategic planning. So we've been tossing out ideas, and we had a meeting this week earlier in the month. We got a meeting at the end of the month. So yes, I'm trying to stay a little bit involved with that and just make sure that the enslaved story gets told correctly, and we've seen some plantations where they've done it incorrectly, and it's been kind of negative feedback from the press, and so we try to make sure they sidestep some of those landmines. I love say Uncle Wes's cabin. They had dedicated a cabin in memorial to one of the former slaves, Uncle West, that used to be on Payne, that used to be on the plantation here. So they specifically, have signs and educational things about what slaves did at that point. I like the Dontavius and the cooking exhibitions and how cooking was done. And Caesar, one of the slaves that used to be on the plantation, how cooking was done under his time, and so just the reenactor, they've done stuff. They brought like one of America's top chefs to come here and talk a little bit about cooking and that style of cooking back then. And so they do a little extra things that other plantations don't do, which I thoroughly like. So I stay connected with all of my family, both sides of the family. I do digging, I can go to certain branches, certain depths, but then I make contact with some of those relatives that I didn't know, and I can go even further down. So it's very helpful to me, just getting to know family in general. The DNA opened it up even more. You can contact members of your family easier, just a simple email now. When I first started, it was hand letters. so so now it's a lot easier to make contact with new family members and then get everybody pulled together, and it helps with different events. We do family reunions every year, and or in some case every other year or something. But it's great. I think it's very important for the community. I think some of the local community comes out who normally don't participate in Lee events, Lee Stratford Hall events. So some portions of the African American community come out who never come out here. So it kind of broadens up a little bit of a learning environment for everybody. So I, like I said, I find something new every time I come up here, and I enjoy either I've done a little bit of hiking, but going to the cliffs, and you can just do a lot of things all in one day. So, yeah, it's nice to get together with the other descendants and learn. Like I met some new descendants today that I never knew before today. So it's a good. Each one of these events brings together some people you might not have known previously, but you have a shared experience or some shared experiences. So it's always nice to meet new descendants and interact, and some problems that someone of them might have had, you might have had the same thing, and y'all get together and hey, it's might be able to fix some things together. So yeah, I enjoy coming and meeting new relatives. I have a couple of nieces and nephews that I try to give as much information to, and actually one of them with us today, Kamaria. I've been feeding her a little bit more information than I have in the past, and links to my website. I have an online app that has all my family tree information within that app, but I'm showing her how I put it together and what she can do to continue it. Um, I try to each family reunion. I try to come up with a little bit of printouts and stuff like this, books and stuff that I give them so they'd have a little bit of the information that I've come up with over these years. And my overall goal, I would like to have maybe a book which I've started putting together just on some of my documentation and everything that I can pass down to my other family. When I first got here, like I said, 1998, I was all fresh and young and fresh into genealogy, and I just found out about Stratford and Robert E. Lee and all this. So my eyes were like, at everything I did, I was wide open. I was like, man, what is, I got to see some enslaved recreation quarters of where slaves lived. And I think at the time I wasn't even sure if they were recreations. I thought they were the original things. So I was all in awe and loved the place. And I actually got to meet one of the historians here. And I came solo. I was by myself. So just driving here from where other side of the state was an adventure in itself. And just going through all the woods and cornfields and everything just to get here was, wasn't prepared for that at the time. But yeah, it was just learning about everything in the Lee family and the Declaration, and signing two of the members signing the Declaration of Independence. I didn't know nothing about that until I got here, and so that was wide open and pretty fun to learn about. So going from that to now, I guess now I've been here enough to where some of that, is worn off as far as the amazement and the awe of the place is kind of worn off because it's not new, but I'm trying to find new things each time I come here. So I do find a little bit of here and there, learn a different fact here and there that I didn't know when I first started. I know there's been recent discoveries about, a community of where the enslaved used to be, that they just found out about maybe 2 months ago. Some foundations. So I'm looking for them to develop that and find out a little bit more about, where the community, what they actually did, if they can. I don't know how funding works, if they can get into that. They are making efforts as far as the cemeteries, trying to what to do with the enslaved cemeteries because right now they're just discovering. They found 70 more locations of where slaves were buried. I mean 70 more burial. um, so just putting more efforts into how to develop or protect those cemeteries. I'd like them to do a little bit more on. Right now, they're in the woods. They're kind of, they did a ground penetrating radar. We know they're there, but what to do with it? So that's about it.